Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about making clay flowers. I'm going to show you some tips. The first thing that I want to show you is kind of the wrong way to do this, that most people really think it's the first way that they should try, and it's kind of the rougher way to start. So a lot of times people will start with a center and they'll make a lot of separate petals and they will slip and score these on around the center. The problem with this is it's a lot of little pieces that can break off and they become really fragile. So it takes a lot of time. This is a much quicker way to approach it. So first I'm going to show you this coil technique. So I've already started one here, but I'll walk you through how I did this. So I took a piece of clay, rolled it into a coil, thicker than you think you need, because you can always go and make it thinner in these second steps that I'm showing you. So once I get a coil that's a little bit longer, I'm going to take and flatten it some. Typically, you want the back side of it to be a little thicker and the front side of it to be a little thinner so that you can get the look of the frail petals. It really depends if you want your flowers to be a little more cartoony or if you want them to look a little more realistic. You can see very much I tapered it, so it's thicker on this side, much thinner on this side. My next step would be to add a lot of water to the surface. You want, anytime you're making something and bending the coil a lot, water helps to make it more pliable so you can work with it a little better. So now if I were to take this and start to wrap it up, you'll notice in the back I'm kind of pressing it really well together, and then at the top as I go I can start to flare out my flower petals. I can also start to attach them lower down so that I create more of a flared out look, or like there's more petals around. Now if you notice I'm not really slipping and scoring too. This works only if your clay is really soft and if you really work to press the clay together as you go around. Now at this point I have a flower. It's starting to resemble a rose here. I can keep manipulating these while they're soft. If you have any detail work you want to do that while it's soft too, because once they start getting hard, they're going to be really frail. Now, the flower I created is really long, but a simple trick for that, if you were going to attach it to something, is you could go and cut the back of it off, and now you have the look of a flower without taking up as much space. Okay, a subtle variation on that is if I go through my thick coil and I start to mark separate petals. So basically cutting V's to get rid of some. Notice I kept the back, so that'll be the part that I attach together. I purposely made my petals a lot bigger at the back end and smaller at the front end. So my center is going to be on this side. So now I'm going to go, just make sure they're a little bit flatter so they'll have that kind of frail look. And I'm going to add a little water once again to really help with the connecting and the pliability. And now I can start to roll them up. Now think of the type of flower you're going for, and that will kind of dictate the shapes that you're creating, whether you want them to be more triangular or round, whether you need some big petals or small petals. But you can see this starts to get that effect of a flower. Same thing in the back. I'm really pinching them together to make sure it's really strong. Okay, so that's my second way. Third and final way. So instead, you'd make concentric circles. So you could roll these with a slab. In my case, I'm just kind of pressing down. So I had a huge one, I've got a medium one, and then I'm gonna do a small one. You can see I already cut out my shapes here. I'm gonna do the same thing, just smaller here. And if you notice, I'm keeping the center solid. So I'm not cutting it into separate pieces. I'm making sure to have this area. Okay, and then my last one, really small. So same thing, unless I want it to have that kind of cartoony look with the sharp edges, I might want to start with making my petals look more natural. So I'm pressing them down so that at the edges, they'll be a little bit thinner. So I'm doing the same thing for each of these. And then because this is a big area to attach, I'm actually going to do a little bit of scratching and slipping where they attach, just at the back area. So I do the same thing on this one as well. Okay, at this point, I'm gonna start to, oh, I need water just to make sure they're really, really pliable as I work. And for this technique, if you need to, you could set it inside of a bowl or set some newspaper under to really help you get that curve. All right, so I'm gonna start with the smallest one. I'm going to curve it up into the shape that I desire. If you wanna add something for the pollen area in the center, you can. And then I'm going to attach it to my next one. I didn't slip because I don't have that, but you guys should be doing that too. Now I can start to pinch these petals up. If you want to kind of get that fold that they often have, you can do that as well. And now, while it's soft, is the time that you can really clean up your edges, because remember, once it gets harder, it's going to be too difficult to do so. Last layer, I'm going to pull it up. And then I can start to think if I want it to be a really opened flower or if I want to kind of close it up a little bit more. I can do some of those final details. And those are 3 different ways that you can make some clay flowers.